As a child, Amy Beedle lived at the center of an invisible storm. While the adults around her navigated a seemingly normal reality, she processed communication differently, constantly picking up on heavy, chaotic frequencies that others were completely blind to. She felt like an outlier, forced to translate the unspoken emotional static of an unpredictable environment. The source of that static was a violent generational trauma rooted deep in her paternal bloodline. This darkness reached its climax in July 1987, when her biological father, battling severe schizophrenia and spiritual torment, fatally attacked his own parents. In her later research, Amy would meticulously catalog this tragic culmination as the 1987 code breach. Facing an inheritance defined by mental illness and violent fragmentation, Amy needed an opposing force to keep her grounded. She found it by looking in the exact opposite direction, tapping into a hidden foundation passed down through her maternal DNA. Standard coping mechanisms are rarely strong enough to neutralize decades of inherited family trauma. Surviving an environment layered with generational curses requires a specific type of spiritual armory, one built long before the host was even born. That armory was forged by three distinct maternal family pillars: the Boones, the Dooleys, and the Zollicofers. Separated by oceans and varying social classes, these families shared one defining historical pattern. They repeatedly abandoned European comfort to survive the raw, uncompromising reality of the American frontier. Their commitment to this new frontier required extreme sacrifice. The Zollicofer lineage, a wealthy family of European aristocracy, intentionally discarded their noble titles. They shortened their name to Kofer and went to work as humble salt boilers in the untamed wilderness, literally boiling water out of springs to harvest necessary minerals. The Boone family contributed a fierce, independent streak. Though deeply devout, Squire Boone publicly challenged the rigid, institutional legalism of the Quaker Church, accepting severe social and economic penalties to protect his children's right to marry for love. To this mix of humility and defiance, Reverend Henry Dooley added spiritual weight. As a frontier preacher, he served as the moral compass for wild territories. His community viewed him not just as a speaker, but as a man carrying a raw, prophetic spiritual mantle. Amy's inheritance is a perfectly preserved prophetic mantle, a specific combination of resilience and critical thinking built over centuries to survive the wild. In ancient agricultural practices, farmers used a coarse sieve to violently shake harvested wheat. This intense motion separates the grain from the worthless dirt. Biblical texts use this exact process, known as sifting, as a metaphor for an intense period where a believer's core faith is violently shaken to see what remains. Amy's sifting did not take place on a physical frontier. It happened entirely inside her own nervous system. Desperate to heal the psychological fragmentation caused by her childhood trauma, she sought out New Age energy work and spiritual alchemy to piece her mind back together. According to her research, this search led her straight into a sophisticated counterfeit. She identified a sharp contrast between God's original biological design, specifically the vagus nerve, which regulates peace and rest, and its artificial, demonic imitation, the chakra system. The danger is mechanical. The area New Age practitioners call the solar plexus chakra maps directly onto the celiac plexus, a massive junction box of nerves often called the abdominal brain. Willfully opening this chakra acts as a microportal that directly short-circuits the calming signals of the vagus nerve. Instead of finding enlightenment, the host's hardware is overridden. This framework reveals that certain facets of the modern wellness industry can function as biological traps, jamming the body's natural regulators and locking the individual into a permanent physiological state of panic. This gauge illustrates what Amy terms the demonic hijack. To successfully deceive a target, dark entities repackage advanced spiritual mechanics originally authored by God, mixing 95% truth with a 5% deviation designed to misalign the soul. This graphic shows how the hijack takes root. Severe trauma acts as a braking force, shattering the self into soul fractals. The space left by that missing fractal creates a vacuum inside the host, providing the environment for demonic attachment. This chart plots the trajectory of recovery. Realizing New Age systems were flawed, Amy rejected those institutions. Relying exclusively on the Holy Spirit, shown by this vector line, she bypassed the fragmented chaos, pulling her scattered soul fractals back into a unified self. Achieving psychological wholeness after severe trauma demands extreme precision. A survivor must possess the absolute discernment required to sift highly sophisticated spiritual counterfeits from genuine divine restoration. This schematic visualizes a critical asymmetry in spiritual physics. While a ministry mantle can transfer laterally across blended families, generational curses follow different rules. They embed themselves strictly within biological DNA, lying completely dormant until a specific trauma triggers their activation. Armed with this knowledge, Amy deployed advanced artificial intelligence as a spiritual forensic tool. She treated her ancestral records and pioneer journals like raw source code, using modern tech models to meticulously parse and map the legal loopholes hidden inside her family tree. She then took those findings into what she refers to as the courts of heaven. Relying on the legal authority inherited from her maternal lineage, she actively prosecuted the enemy, demanding the permanent severance of the dormant paternal curses responsible for the 1987 code breach. Breaking a generational curse is not achieved through passive repetition of a generalized prayer. It is a targeted, legal spiritual audit that requires documented divine authority and surgical execution. Despite successfully executing this massive spiritual victory, the fight continues in the present day. Amy's family is currently enduring severe real-world pressure, culminating in her son Kobe facing a prison sentence right as he explores his own faith. Yet, through her prophetic framework, Amy views this crisis not as a systemic failure, but as a deliberate, final sifting. Just like the agricultural sieve used to violently shake the wheat, the enemy has requested permission to test her children, hoping to break their resolve just as they step into their own spiritual authority. The centuries of grit, survival, and defiance documented in her lineage have a specific contemporary purpose. This inherited resilience provides the legal standing to completely sever generational darkness and act as an unshakable shield for the future.